Hey, welcome to another episode of Dental Assistant Nerd Podcast. I'm your co-host, John Hatfield.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Amanda.
Amanda, of course, with me. And Amanda, we're going to talk about some exciting stuff here today, right? We always do, but let's talk about something real exciting.
You know what? Our podcast would not be called Dental Podcast Nerds if we weren't nerds and love talking about everything dentistry. So, absolutely. So today we're talking about the business side of dentistry.
Oh, sounds riveting.
Sounds riveting. Doesn't sound anything too exciting, or it doesn't really sound like something that maybe a new or experienced dental assistant doesn't really have anything to pertain to us as dental assistants, right? We can both think of times back early in our career that we went to work for the day and we came home and muscled through, our first years of dentistry. And the business side of things was really nothing that we would have thought of, or definitely was not explained how it sort of works, right?
Yeah, for me personally, I think about how I never really gave a thought as to where my next paycheck was going to come from because it was just going to happen, right? So
Yeah.
I never really thought about, okay, how does that money even get into the bank account for you to receive that check? And I think that's very important for people to think about because as much as we know dentistry is healthcare, it's also a business. And that's something Amanda and I are going to dive into today because we, of course, are professional educators and we want to educate people in knowing that where that next paycheck's coming from. Because, one day you're going to be shell shocked if the business isn't going so well and you don't have that paycheck. So, we're going to talk about a couple things you can look for, be on the lookout for, and of course, how you can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is definitely something we cover in our program as well. We're both owners, instructors of our school program, Cornerstone Dental Assistant Academy. And we're always telling our students when we're talking about this in class as well, that we're with you for 13 weeks, 3 months of your education period. But we are doing everything we can to prepare you for week 14 and beyond into your career. We want to prepare you for life of dentistry. So in retrospect, we are always talking about the cost of supplies, just straight out of, the business side of dentistry, that
You mean that
supplies.
extra gauze and that extra cotton rolls? Like, does that matter? What's one cotton roll? Does that
Yeah.
matter?
I mean, what's the cotton roll that is surrounded by the plastic cellophane, to keep it all together, and it takes a tumble and
Yeah,
you drop two or three of them because you're stacking them up, underneath your chin to get to your room to stockpile, and you
yeah.
drop four or five of the whole roll.
Eh, eh.
Eh, is the 3 second, 5 second rule really a thing in dentistry? Not in Amanda Newhouse world of dentistry. Has someone done it? I have no idea. I hope not. But yeah, absolutely. Supplies, your throwaways, the list goes on and on. One of the big things that we don't even use in our dental assisting course is the office's X-ray sensor. Think of the cost of those X-ray sensors that we don't use one because we don't want, a random student turn around and using it, as a lasso, when they're not, in the sense, casually, thinking while we're lecturing, and knowing what the costs of those are. And they're attached to, you have it hooked up to your XCP, it's in your computer, and you're walking through. I know personally myself, I've tripped over the cord.
Yep.
And what happens? You trip over the cord, it pulls out the USB, and down goes the sensor on the ground. And your doctor's looking at you like, what are you doing? This is an X-ray sensor. And so we tell our students, this is, it's always interesting as well that, we play the game of what's this cost, and the X-ray sensor is
Yeah,
nowhere
price is
near
right.
the
Price is
price
right,
is
right?
right. The cost of that is nowhere near what they think it's going to be. $300, $400, $500 is honestly about, a number that we'll ask the students for the X-ray sensor. Your Nomad, or whatever brand you're using. How many thousands of dollars is that unit, and they're heavy. Why can't someone create one of those things that isn't so heavy?
I mean,
Uh,
they got those little camera ones now, but I mean, same thing, it's a
yeah.
couple grand, and sometimes people don't realize that because obviously they're not paying for it out of their own pocket. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from this is it's definitely one of those things where you want to treat those items and supplies in your office as if they are your own, because essentially they are your own. If you think about how an office works, and that's what we're going to, you know, segue right into right now. We're going to talk about how do you even have a clue of how your office budget works? Offices, they make money, but then they spend money. And you, as an employee, are typically their biggest asset as far as what they're spending. So, we just gave a couple examples of what they're spending money on, whether it's the Nomad, whether it is the sensor. But at the end of the day, the employees are what's costing an owner the most money. So if you're able to contribute and help cut down on some of those other things, then you're able to, hopefully, reap those rewards when it comes to bonuses and, of course, raises evaluation time.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many of the hidden costs that we don't realize until you're a business owner as well. So not only employees of salary, but there's all these insurances. There's your malpractice insurance, there's licensure, there's the cost for, if you have nitrous and you have the cost for your oxygen and your nitrous. There's, whether your doctor,
The unemployment insurance. I
the
mean,
unemployment insurance, right?
that
The
insurance company, they get you.
Yeah. So, when your doctor is, um, I think where we really get disgruntled, and John, we both of us work together in an office that every morning you saw the morning huddle, and what's the first thing on the dry erase board?
Oh, that big number, that big
That big
number.
number. That big
Hey,
number. And as an employee, all we look at is the big number. So, I feel like those, everybody's has a different feeling of what those morning huddles should be and what that number looks like. But I know from my standpoint as an employee, when I see this number that my office wants me to help hit, I don't know, let's just say $120,000 for the month. Now, wait a second. I, a lot of your employers are only seeing that big number. As a dental assistant, we're only seeing that big number. You're not looking at the cost of all the employee salaries, the insurance, the electric bill, your water bill, the dental lab bill, the malpractice insurance, all these things. Sometimes we're always looking at that big number and we're looking at the vacation that maybe the doctor or the owner took. Or, well, if I hit that
listening to
number
that
for,
boat. Hey, you got that boat, it's
yeah. And we've all heard that kind of joke in the dental practice as a dental assistant that a patient gets in the chair and the doctor in a sense says, oh, we're going to do 2 crowns today instead of one, and ha 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 looks up to the doctor and says, oh, you must have a new car payment to make, or like you said, the boat, or whatever it is. But it's still a business. And of course, over the years, John and I have understood this as well in teaching our students, and obviously now business owners ourselves with the school, that there's this huge umbrella of finances that a business has to undertake. And every business owner is in it for it, of course, we love what we do as instructors and we want to make a difference in the world of dental assistants, but nobody also goes into owning a business and saying, I don't care if I don't financially make it. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
can't
like
stay over.
I just want to break even, or
I can, yeah, I
sweat
just want to
coming
break
every month.
even,
Yeah.
or yeah, if I don't make any money, it's no big deal. If I don't ever, as a business owner, the majority of, I can't say nobody out there, but the majority of people are not saying it's okay if I never get to pay myself, because as long as I can kind of break even. So it's still a business to be able to financially make money. So how
Yeah.
do those numbers work?
Well, I think and you're kind of jarring my memory here a little bit. Now I'm seeing this flood of all these different posts of dental assistants who really didn't understand. And then of course, like it kind of, it's negative energy because it obviously feeds it. But I've seen before where someone will post, what's one secret about dentistry that you don't want the public to find out? And everybody starts putting in what procedures cost. Someone's like, I sat down and figured out that a crown actually cost $200. And it's like, how did you get that number? And then of course, they're very meticulous. They do start adding up. Okay, well, the cord cost this, and breaking everything down, but they don't factor in at all what the building cost, what the insurance cost, what the 500,000 in dental school debt cost. Like they just immediately, so that's one of those examples of, you really have to look at the big picture, not necessarily what you're just using for that moment.
Absolutely. I think we're gonna pause here real quick
Oh,
because
okay.
we're gonna do a commercial break because we're recording this also for a podcast. So we're gonna do a quick break.
All right, perfect. And let's hear from our sponsor of this episode. All right. So, okay. All right. You ready to continue?
I'm ready to continue. So, of course, we're not.
And we're back from a commercial break.
Thanks, Sean, for
You're welcome.
keeping us on track. So when we're, in dentistry has financially changed post-COVID. We've all experienced it. John and I are getting the crazy feedback. We're in the mix as well of what this hourly rate increase is. If you don't know where we reside, we're in the Pittsburgh region in PA. So it's been a huge flux of change of the hourly rate from FDA's, DAs, hygienist, front desk. And we're not telling anybody, we're not talking about hourly rates here at all, because of course we all know it also depends on experience. But what we do want our assistants and hygienists and whoever's watching in the dental field or who's getting into the dental field, that there is a formula, there is a percentage that every doctor has. We're not going to go in this detailed formula either and have a math class, because that
Well,
form,
really, there's so many different formulas. Like we
right?
couldn't even
Yeah.
get into it because when you see the groups, they randomly, someone will ask, hey, how do you figure out raises? How do you figure out a budget? And you start seeing all these different examples. So, we wouldn't even begin to get into it because honestly, like Amanda said earlier about experience, same thing. Like different practice ownership across the country is different and everybody has different beliefs. So, we couldn't even begin to get into someone else's formula.
So, but where this is an easy breakdown is what we can talk about a little bit of what is produced and what is collected, which is a completely night and day process in your day to day. That just because you saw maybe on the side of your computer screen, if you're using your Open Dental or EagleSoft or Dentrix, whatever. Some offices are set up that the staff can see that production on the side of the screen and they can see what's collected. So you also, as an office owner, can regulate what is seen and what is not seen on that screen. So I've also temped in a lot lately, and I'm seeing in some offices that number is not on there. So I have no idea what that production and collection is for the day. And really, I don't need to know. So that's something that if you're seeing that your office is kind of, ranting and raving about these numbers, whether good or bad, it just might be something you might want to take off if you're finding that it's an issue in your practice, or leave it there.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's a great idea, honestly,
yeah,
because not everybody is motivated by making someone else money.
no, no,
Right? I
no.
mean, I get managers standing up in front of me and they're like, all right, come on, we got to make another 20 grand. And it's like, for who?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, you do have the option of just like blocking certain areas of that scheduler or of the computer system in general. That your office manager can only, go into certain sections of that software that you're using, and not your FDA, not your hygienist, not your financial coordinator, or whatever. So you do have those options to go into those programs. So that might be something. So we have production versus collection. It would be a great I think asset, we know of an office that does this, that when their hygienist or EFTA, when it's time for their yearly review, then they break down numbers. Of course, I don't know if they give a year, a quarter, that you're asking for this based on because you think my number of production is,
Yeah.
whatever the number is.
I produced 400 grand this year.
Well, our collection of that was only, I don't know,
125.
300.
Uh,
Huh?
125.
Okay, well, it's not that low. I hope not. But there is a write-off. There is a collection.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
you do see some insurances like an office will bill 90, but then they collect 50 on a pro fee, you know. So
right.
so that's a good example of, production versus collection.
It is. So when an office manager or owner can sit with you and say, just to give you an overview of the numbers, this is what it's really look like on my business side of what I see as the owner. Now, please take this as just an informative podcast from John and I's experience as well. As the owner and as the dentist, please do what you want, obviously. We're not here as we're newer entrepreneurs, and we're not dental office owners. Maybe not
Yes.
as of yet,
Yes. Yes.
at yet, because in Pennsylvania you can be an owner and not be a dentist. In case you need to know, just a little tidbit of information. So production versus collection, huge difference. So maybe it would help with your raises and last year was a big disgruntled moment about Christmas bonuses and what they got in previous years, but everybody's still sort of in the sense recovering from COVID. But not only that, that we're sort of, on a thin string because of how much supply costs have went up due to also how much our gallon of milk went up and our dozen of eggs. So all of these things go into play. So that's a big showcase of numbers. But where that also goes into, these numbers are also a huge range on whether an office produces $2 million of production a year or an office that produces $10 million for the year. Do we really think that each office is going to be able to pay, or offer the same raises because of how different the collection is or production is for each office? So as a dental assistant, a hygienist, or whoever is asking for, this increase financially, and you're only seeing this number of maybe, like I said, we've said, or the production, or you're seeing that the schedule is getting heavier because we're trying to counterbalance, the paybacks from the insurances have not increased, but our supplies have increased. So maybe we're trying to see more patients for what we're losing. So all of this is coming into play with those decisions, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's if you're in a practice that maybe takes state assistance, for example, that reimbursement's low. So, Amanda worked in a practice recently that what they run 4 or 5 columns,
Yeah, for a doctor,
yeah,
and
for a
because,
doctor, just based
right,
on no-show rates.
no-show rates, high no-show rates. But I remember an insurance, and I'm not going to mention a name either, but there was a payout from an insurance company that was a state assistant insurance company here in Pennsylvania. I don't remember exactly, but it was a standard one tooth filling. I don't remember how many surface it was, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter. The payback to the office was $4. I mean, that's a joke.
Right. Now,
No matter if it's, you know, I, no matter what insurance company it is, if it's state assistant, Medicare, Medicaid, for an insurance company to say that you do 18 MOD and only get, I'm only going to pay you $4 for this procedure, we have to think of the time of your assistant, your electric bill, the pay of your doctor, the anesthesia, the time in the chair. How many times do we see that, offices see emergency patients and dental assistants, or, office staff, office managers, dentists don't charge out, that palliative exam or that, emergency exam, to the insurance company. These are all little things. If someone is physically sitting in your chair for a period of time and you're able to charge something of an emergency appointment, then all these little things can add up of how you can substantially change that number.
Yeah, I mean, with, you know, as far as the overall number and the budget, these are things that if your office is willing to share, then I would certainly take an interest in it. Get to know, try and level the playing field as far as if you are, okay, what do I have to do to get a raise and other benefits? This way you at least know what is going on, or maybe why you're not getting those things. Because now you can start to address the problem and hopefully find a solution for it. And, honestly, if it's an office that maybe you haven't got a raise in a couple years and now you kind of find out why. We see more and more, especially with COVID, offices closing, offices for sale. Now you have a new owner, and maybe a new owner comes in and he wants to cut cost. So one thing we've seen several times is that the owner says, "Oh, this staff is overpaid." Well, you're a new owner. Like, how do you know that the staff is overpaid? And unfortunately, they're taking that upon themselves to where they're not being honest and saying, "Hey, I'm not going to pay you. I'm not going to give you a raise." They basically are going to flush you out. So when you do finally ask for a raise, at this point they say, "Well, when I bought the practice, I overpaid, and unfortunately, you're capped." So they
Mhm.
want you to quit because at that point they can hire, um, lesser paying talent. So that's another thing too to keep in mind, is especially if your practice was just purchased or if you're going through the process of it as well. But
That's a
definitely,
whole other that's a whole
yeah,
other mess.
yeah, absolutely. And
And
I'm not trying to get into that. I'm trying to more so,
no, understandable.
more so show that we're always
Yeah,
talking about what is the big picture. Like I think everybody has different circumstances, and just because I know Amanda makes X, and maybe if we had the same title and I have more experience, I shouldn't necessarily be like, well, I should make more than Amanda because I have more experience. Like, first of all, experience is it's kind of just a number, because when we talk to our students, yeah, one person might have 5 years experience and another person might have 6 years, but maybe that person with lesser years has more experience because they've done more versus someone who just was in the same practice, did the same small procedures all the time. Like, just because they were there 10, 15 years, now they kind of get out there and into that big pond, and now they're realizing, wow, I'm definitely lost because my experience I thought I had really needs I need to open up my eyes. And unfortunately then you start seeing your worth, because now everyone's asking, "Hey, do you have implant experience? Do you have oral surgery experience?" Well, no, my doctor referred out all of our extractions.
right.
So you were on easy street for a while, but now when you get out there and you're trying to prove your worth, it might be a little bit more difficult.
And I would say the biggest thing to rectify all of this, and John and I are always stressing to each other, which we're pretty big open, but is communication. Communicate, talk, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask for the explanation. That from goes from, learning a new procedure as a new dental assistant, and addressing, how, your evaluation in a professional formal manner, and asking for an explanation of, how what number they came up with and how they came up with it, and how you can increase it, negotiating, can I reevaluate this in 6 months? If you do not ask the question, why would someone give you the answer? If you don't communicate and ask, you look uninterested. You also come across as like,
Very
that's
lackadaisical.
that's the answer, and that's what I'm gonna settle for. I by no means think that it becomes an argument or becomes the slamming door or, the screaming match in the sense of The Office, and we've all experienced it, we've all heard of someone experience it at least. That, we are a professional career. If we want to be seen as that way as individuals, then you also have to act that way. Communication is key of rectifying the issue of all of these things. Of course, as business owners, as dental office owners or office managers, you have to decide on how much, in a sense, open communication you want to share. But I really think that maybe some of these ideas and understandings, and we hope the dental assistants, hygienists, and staff that's watching understand some of this cost and this overhead in this, in a sense, formula that maybe they're not aware of on asking for these future raises and incentives as well.
Yeah. So, um, what do you think? We about out of time for today?
I would say so. John and
Okay.
I are open communicators. We love to talk. If you love to talk, give us a call because we'll set up a Zoom with you and chat about what, anything and everything.
Yeah, I mean,
Why not?
we're always looking for, new topics, new people to talk to. So, by all means, feel free to hit us up. You can email us at cornerstonedainstructors@gmail.com. You have a comment on one of our episodes. I don't know, maybe you don't like us. I find that very hard to believe. Very hard to believe. But
Uh, the world goes around with not agreeing with everybody, and that's okay. We're
but
not arguers though either.
yeah, but I mean,
Not
certainly if
typically.
you maybe you have a further question on what we talked about today or a past episode, feel free to message us. Just make sure you put in the subject the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast so we know exactly what it's pertaining to. If someone's going on a rant, maybe we don't know what it is, but that is our school email, and feel free to contact us, and we will be getting ready for our next episode. So make sure you like and follow us here on YouTube. And of course, the podcast, we'd really appreciate that. You can find us at Dental Assistant Nerds Podcast on Spotify. And I think that'll be it for today. Amanda's going to sign off here, and we can't wait to see you next time.
Yeah, so stand tall, stand out, be confident in your knowledge, continue to educate yourself in the dental assistant world, and we look forward to the next conversation.
All right. Hope everyone has a great day.